Welcome everyone to the art of becoming a Salesforce architect. So how many people here have, let's say, one of the architect certifications? At least one of them. How many people have one of like system or app architect? Fantastic. Well, this class is not just for you. This class is for anyone that's considering being an architect, whether you are a developer just beginning or whether you have both system and app architect and you're getting ready to sit for your exam. So what I'm here to do is talk to you about the art of becoming an architect from either the developer all the way up to becoming a CTA and then potentially even beyond. So I'm going to talk about who I am. Steve Simpson. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 18 years. I am a CTA, Certified Technical Architect. And I became one about 6 years ago. And I've been teaching for Trailhead on the side pretty much for the last 6 years. So teaching in the architect pyramid. I'm also a judge, and I had an exam 2 days ago with a pass, so it was awesome to be able to be there when someone is getting their new CTA. So they're not all like that. The exam is tough. This session is not just about the exam, but it was a great feeling coming into this, being able to watch somebody actually, be their judge when they pass. So I live and breathe Salesforce. Used to be years ago, going back even to the DBase days. Then I became into Java. I built in .NET in the .NET Beta in 99-2000. But around 04-05, I switched to Salesforce, keeping .NET on the side. So .NET and Salesforce, and I've been living and breathing Salesforce. I am I am an addict. I'm addicted to Salesforce certifications. I got a little crazy and started taking a bunch more recently. So I do believe in them. I believe in the value of what you learn, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So you're on your journey. I used to teach this session where I would just tell you what you needed to do to pass. This session is more about you as a person. What do you need to feel? How do you approach this? Your journey is each different. This isn't a cookie cutter. Go do data architect, then do sharing, make sure you knock out builder, then do this, then do this. You have this little thing, life, work, everything else, and you're trying to do all that. It's not just about getting the certifications. So you're actually living being an architect the moment you start down that journey. So you need to decide what's important to you. Am I just going to become better at what I do? A better builder? And I don't need all those crazy certifications. Or I want just app or sys, or I don't even need the certification. I just want to be a good person who builds and delivers. So you're going to pick your own path and build your vision. So there's these two phrases that stuck with me. I used to do the martial arts, and the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's from Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching. But there's also a cool one I heard recently. If the best time to start something was yesterday, then the second best time to start something is today, right now. So whatever you've done or could or couldn't do, family, life, challenges, that's okay. Today is the day you decide what you're going to do going forward. So you get to choose what your path is. Doesn't have to be just knockout certifications. It could just be learning and getting better. And you get to choose today to start. So today is the new day to begin. So as you begin this journey, or you've been on this journey for years, you want to understand your why. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing it just to get the certs, just to get a little more money in my job, which hopefully it can lead you to better job satisfaction, the cool feeling of knowing more. You're going to figure out your why. Start to pick some goals. And how you're going to climb the goals. When they first came out with the CTA, I was running a Salesforce practice, and I was hands everywhere, every project I was in, and I'm like, oh, I'll get CTA, but it just said, read the entire Apex manual, know everything, and that was it, and I never got around to it. And then they invented the pyramid in 16, and I'm very goal-oriented, I'm that person, I was in martial arts and my instructor's like, I'll give you an assistant instructor badge if you go teach this class at this school. Yes, sir. And next thing I know, I'm like going to an elementary school, setting up a flag, and I'm like, this is a lot of work. But I got my assistant instructor badge. I got very motivated. Some of us, what do they call that now? Gamification? So I was gamified many, many years ago to go do above and beyond. So when they invented the pyramid, I said, I want that. And so I suddenly decided, and it was in like 16, I saw the pyramid. And come January, I just started taking certs, and in 6 months, I knocked them out, sat for the exam. I did not pass. So I did not pass the first time. It wasn't a pleasant experience. Then they invented this class called the 601. We're going to put people through the class. So I was in the first class, took the class, and then I took the test shortly thereafter, and I passed. And then they said, Steve, you're a fresh passer of the pyramid. How about if you come help the next round? So I was actually helping teach the class shortly after becoming a CTA, and I've been teaching in the program since 17. But I have felt the feeling of failure. It is not a fun experience. And I have 31 certs, and I have not passed them all. Here's a crazy thing. I took the JavaScript cert. I knocked out the super badge, and I didn't pass. And you know why? Because I speak Apex. I speak C#. What the heck is this like lifting of scope and the let and the var, anybody, and the promises? Any JavaScript certified people here? Is it crazy? Is it like a crazy syntax?
Yeah, you gotta know all the little ins and outs.
And you take that 60 question, and do you know what? I don't know all of you. I've just knocked out 7 certs in a row in like 2 weeks. I took 7 certs in a row, knocked them out, and then I take JavaScript, and I'm like, it was like, read these lines of code, what's the output? So I have to like do a loop and a promise and 3 asynchronuses and 2 failure promises and figure out, and I am telling you, that test is solid. Anyone who gets the JavaScript cert, that's a solid test. I'm gonna be knocking that baby out soon. But I am telling you, so I know the feeling of failure. And that's okay, because what do they say? You learn from your failures more than you learn from your successes. The key is, what got me when I didn't pass my CTA the first time is I don't give up. And that's what I tell my kids. I have twin 14-year-olds, and we say the Simpsons never give up. And so we don't give up. So for you, this is about not here are your things and the hoops. This is about internal. I'm talking to you people. Pick your goals. Do a self-assessment. Are you a better coder? Project management, strategic thinking. What superpower do you have? You all have something unique, different than someone else. How can you tap into that superpower, whatever that is, and get your job done? I got twin boys that are completely different. One boy just focuses, knocks things out. The other boy is like intuitive, sees the answer, but he's like a cat. He gets easily distracted and he's like done. So they're very different, and they're twins. So you got to figure out what your superpower is and tap into that. And then build on your strengths. If you've got a coding background, build on it, and you need to fill it in with some solution design and presentation. If you aren't that technical, build on your PM, build on your people management, add in the necessary tech. So figure out your own strengths and build on them. Stay curious. That's the Ted Lasso line, stay curious. Want to know everything. And everything, I'm going to tell you another side, everything is knowable. There is nothing any of you cannot understand. It is all knowable. And I'll talk about how to get there. And you're not alone. This room is filled with people. There are community groups filled with people. There are chat rooms filled with people. The boards, you are not alone on this journey. When I didn't pass and I went into that first class, this other guy, he didn't pass, and we were sitting in a class together. His name's Gustavo. And Gustavo and I were in the 601, and we started doing Zoom meetings back and forth, and we get on a Zoom meeting, and we tell me this OAuth flow, and tell me this, and we were back and forth. And we then each took the test and passed. So in that week, there were about a 2-month period from my failure to my pass. And 60 people, no, it was 4 test weeks. So 40 people took the test in that 2-month period. And you know how many passes there were? 2. Gustavo and I. And we were doing full section retakes. So I'll admit it wasn't a partial, it was a full. And Gustavo now works for Salesforce. He's a judge. He's in the solution design team. He's one of the big, one of the big CTAs over at Salesforce. So you're not alone. And again, you don't have to go to CTA. Let me come right here. So let's talk about the art of being an architect. First, start thinking like an architect today. You are an architect. It's like, let's use I speak in analogies, and we were builders. If you were asked to build a little house, if you aren't an architect, you just put 4 walls, throw a door, and you're done. That's what they want. That's what they're going to get. But if you start asking questions like, does it have air conditioning? Does it need earthquake proof? What happens when this happens? Do you need more? As soon as you start thinking about the future, you are kind of a junior architect. And the same thing with software. Somebody gives you requirements, and you just build for the requirements. And they say, I have approver 1 and approver 2, and you create a field called approver 1, and you create a field called approver 2. You don't ask the question, what happens when there's approver 3 and 4, and 5 and 6? So there's the difference between an architect. An architect wouldn't put approver 1 and 2 unless their arm was bent behind their back. Make me. Okay, you swore it in blood, there'll only be 2 approvers. You'll never have a 3rd approver. That's me. Oh, okay, I'll do it. So you only go there if you have to. An architect doesn't allow ugly solutions. And if you do, you fight them tooth and nail. So think you're like an architect. Always be learning. I learn from everyone everywhere. I am never afraid to admit I don't know something perfectly and I want to know more. And then learn from the patterns around you. I'm going to talk about these concepts. I believe there are universal ideas out there, and once you find them, you can learn from them. And then ideas can be transferred from one place to the other and build beautiful. We'll go into little details. So what you want to do is approach each project looking for the problems. 2 approvers might become 3 or 4. I'm loading up data. How many rows? I have one of my talks. I do YouTube videos where I'm break things down. And I said, I'm going to start sharing on the internet for free a video. I do them about 10 minutes, and I take a problem, I study it, I solve it, and I share it. One of them I did was Steve's number of zeros. So somebody says, I'm going to have accounts. And I say to my client, how many accounts are you going to have? I don't know. Anybody ever ask a client, and they're like, they don't know how many accounts they're going to have? So I call it Steve's number of zeros. You can have 10. 10,000, 10 million, 10 billion, 10 billion. Next thing you know, they finally say, all right, we're going to have about 100,000. All right, 100,000 accounts. How many opportunities are you going to have per account per year? 2 a month. All right, 2 a month. 100,000 times 2. Now how many opportunities am I up to? What's that? No, 2 per month times 12 is 24, times 100,000 is 2.4 million. So all of a sudden I'm at 100,000 accounts, 2.4 million opportunities, and I say on average, how many opportunity line items are you going to have per opportunity? 10. All right, you gave me 10. So now how many account line items am I up to? 24 million year 1, 48 million line year 2. You start, and then you go at 30. I usually throw in a 30% growth. So right there, I'm hitting large data volumes with just 100,000, 2 opportunities a month, average of 10 line items. So the architect sees that coming, asks those questions early. One of my clients was doing appointments. They do 100 appointments a day. Is that a lot? Oh, they have 1,000 stores. Field service lightning, 100 appointments a day, 1,000 stores. How many work orders and service appointments will we have in 1 year? 1,306, 6 days a week, so that's 300 days a year, times 100. So it's 100, it turns out to be 34 million service appointments in year 1 in field service lightning. Year 2, 70 million. And then they said we created an appointment for the front office when you come in to like check your tires out, and then the other one when you actually go in the bay. So they were at one work order, 2 service appointments. So we were at 70 million records in year 1. And I saw that coming before we even started. Because I just said 1,000 stores, 100 appointments a day, 6 days a week. All of a sudden, the architect sees that coming in the beginning. That's the difference. The architect asks those questions. And that's to consider not just the immediate, but the scalability and maintainability. So I built in archiving to big objects in day 1. Before we even had 1 service appointment, I was already doing an archive solution. And that's the mindset of the architect. 2, always be learning. I teach classes like every couple weeks, and I learn from my classes. I learn from them, from my students. They ask questions, and I'm like, I don't really know. I'll get your answer at the next break, and then I Google it, I search it, I'm on help text. I'll tell you tomorrow, and I'll build a demo or reach out to tech support. So always be learning. Never think you know more than anyone else. Always be learning. And then say what went good, what went bad. I remember one time I was coding at I was 25 years old, and I was coding this thing. And luckily, I printed out my code until my foot hit the power cord, turned my computer off, and I lost all my code. And I actually retyped it in, and I looked at what I had created later, and it was half as long and worked better. So now what do we call that? How do we explain when we rewrite everything? What's the word that gets budget? Refactor. Oh, I refactored my code. Not I kicked the power cord and had to start all over. But I ended up creating better code. And I found sometimes when I start over, I create it better because I saw the problem. So be reflective. What worked well, what didn't work well, and how you can get better. And recognize patterns around you. See these patterns. Don't reinvent the wheel if a pattern already exists. And some of my recent talks I did, I'll go through it, go a little bit later, is I did this one on a survey. How do you take a survey? If I'm making a dynamic survey where I have n number of surveys, n number of questions, and then I want them to answer, then I end up with a survey object, question object, an answer object. But then you start to say, well, what if I have more than the question across 2 surveys? I get a junction object. What if I want versioning? So that was one of my last 2 talks. That data model is like CPQ, it's dynamic forms, it's like form assembly. It's like the data model even behind Salesforce with an object and tables. So you see these patterns, they reoccur. Watch for the patterns. And that's why I believe that there are universal ideas out there. That you give 10 people the same problem, they're going to converge on concepts. Some of them might go off reservation and create something a little wacky. I got the survey thing, I actually made that an interview question. I would just give them patients are visited by nurses. They take a survey. They have dynamic questions, and I would ask this of my interviews. And when I had people walk right up and just give me the 6-object solution perfectly, and I'm like, "You're hired." And then I had somebody who was at 10 objects, 1 object per survey, and he was going on. And I actually canceled the interview. I said, "This isn't going to work. Thank you very much." And I actually told him, I said, "Interview's over." If he was creating a separate table for every survey, I'm like, you are not touching my client's code. And so the point is, I believe there are universal designs. Sorry, I missed the last bullet point. And then you can find them out there. Also, build beautiful. If your code's ugly, how do I know? I don't believe it's going to work well. I don't think if you're the greatest code monster, but if you're tangle up commands on one line and don't do not clean variable names, you do X for bar X's, then it may work, but it's not maintainable. I can't understand it. I actually had a programmer who was from another country, and he coded in English, but it was reversed. And it was in English but reversed, and it wasn't against him, but it was he wasn't thinking cleanly. And I've had other people from foreign language programmers that are gorgeous code. And you just swap out a var name that's maybe a German abbreviation, and the code's perfect. You know, just because I don't know the var name in German doesn't mean the code wasn't perfect. So it's the beauty. There's beauty that transcends. And I know that sounds weird. I've had a couple of people who worked with me before. Do I like beautiful? Any comments about my code? Beautiful? All right, a couple of them here who have actually worked with me. I'm very picky on cleanliness. And then keep the user in mind. Build beautiful. So I believe there are universal concepts. I believe that you should have beautiful code, build beautiful things. This will make you better. Next thing, learn to speak tech. TLAs and FLAs. What's a TLA? 3-letter acronym. What's an FLA? A 4-letter acronym. I used to teach this back in the 90s. I'd have COM and DCOM, you know, a JDBC, you know, COM, DCOM, SQL. I have to, like the sockles like got stuck in my mouth for so many years. You know, SQL, COM, DCOM, NetCorba. Oh, we had Corba and Orbs before we had web services. Now you got to learn to speak the new ones. So brevity and standardization. You need to know what they mean. Don't fight them. Know what they mean and learn to speak the tech. If you are proficient in them, there's this Dilbert cartoon, old cartoon making fun of a boss. The boss says, I need a worldwide client server database. And the little bubble of Dilbert says, does he really know what he's talking about, or did he read it in a magazine? What color do you want your database? And then the boss goes, mauve, it has the most RAM. And so it was just, some people can throw them around. So let's talk about these. Here's a few. CRM, API, FSL, FLS. There's a nice one, FSL versus FLS. You know, everyone should know what FLS is. Field level security, FSL, field service lightning. Let's do LWCs, or I stuck in VF because we use it all the time even though it's 2 letters. DML, MDTs. DMLs twice, CLI, ETL, XML, SSO, IAM, MFA. We throw these things around. You should know what they are. Here's some FLAs. SOCL, SOSL, SFDC, REST. That's an acronym, REST. It's not me taking a nap. That's an acronym. Who knows what REST stands for? Anybody? Representational state transfer, REST. Okay. SOAP. Who knows? I'm tired. I go wash up with some soap. Who knows what SOAP stands for? What is it? Simple Object Access Protocol. Application Protocol. I'm not sure exactly what the A is. SAS, CRUD, create, read, update, delete, create, read. So we throw these around, but they allow precision. FSL, FLS. I could be conversing, did you get your FLS right? Field level security. So learn the technical TLAs and FLAs. They allow us to be precise, but to somebody outside of our space, they will confuse them. Be ready to define them. So learn the speak, and then OAuth, Apex, org. Org is a very strict meaning. Is an org a sandbox? Is a sandbox an org? And these have very specific meanings in our industry. BA, UI, QA. What is the difference between a BA and a PM and who does what? These have very specific meanings. S objects, Kafka, event. Okay. So there's my key concepts. Think like you're already an architect. That's for any juniors, anybody just getting started. Already start thinking like you're an architect. Gather requirements, push back on approver 1 and approver 2. Think of options and alternatives. Look for those implied requirements. Client says, build me a house. And then you build the house just like they asked for. But it doesn't have sprinkler system, no emergency exits. And they're like, you didn't tell me to build them. And they're like, we assumed you'd do what was standard and normal in the industry. So where's my error handling? Where's my logging? Why are they hard-coded? Why am I not using custom settings? Those are industry standard concepts that you should not be doing as programmers, or your teams. So your team should have config files and and MDTs and custom metadata, and they should have thought through deploying this thing through multiple environments, not like having a sharing rule that has a user ID in it. Anybody seen a sharing rule with a user ID? How do you deploy that? How do you back deploy that? That's against industry standards, but the client didn't tell you not to do it. So you need to see those. As I talked about, see the growth in data, the growth in users, the growth in traffic, increasing business complexity. You need to see that coming or put guidelines and parameters around it in your assumptions. This is what an architect does. This is the art of being an architect. Points of failure. I actually had one where, so let's say you're doing Salesforce to MuleSoft to SAP, and we actually asked questions. What happens if Salesforce goes down? What happens if MuleSoft goes down? What happens if SAP goes down? What happens when we had to plan for it? Will Salesforce actually go down? What are the odds of Salesforce actually going down? But what could cause me not to be able to reach it? It could be up, but I can't get to it. What's the most I was at a data center. My kids are 14, took them to the Boy Scouts. We actually got into the cool data center here in Phoenix. It's where the double fiber access for all the internet for the world enters Phoenix. They actually circle the airport with a double ring fiber backbone, and this company has both feeds, so they are the entry point for the internet for all of Phoenix. And we got to see and do the facility and all that, and see the backbone of that. And so it was interesting. I talked to the owner there, and he said, do you know what a data center goes down every week somewhere in the US? Why? Most common loss of a data center. It's one every week in the United States. Construction. Somebody's up there with a track hoe 2 blocks away and they cut the fiber line. The data center is up, the power is up, the internet, everything's up, but somebody's like building 2 blocks away and the tractor's digging the road and cut the internet. So construction, he admitted, construction is the single greatest cause of a data center loss. It's up, it's running, just lost its feed, and that's why they have 2 coming in from different directions to the building, not like in the same trench. That wouldn't do you any good if you had them coming in. So one comes from one side, one comes from the other, because people might dig. And so Salesforce could go down because of data center loss, a traffic, Cox went down. So what do? How do you buffer? How do you recover between sales? So you got to ask those questions. We're throwing platform events. So if you do platform events, what will happen if MuleSoft is down for 2 hours and then comes back up again? What will it do if it's pulling events from the event bus? Anybody know? What will it do?
It's fine. In 2 hours, it'll keep querying it. They'll come through.
And what does MuleSoft send to Salesforce when it reconnects? This is the details.
The ID of the last one that it got that was successful, so they can go from there.
Absolutely correct. It sends in a replay ID of the last successful ID, and it'll buffer it. How long will Salesforce store those messages with just the replay ID? 72 hours. It's now 72 hours. So that isn't it. But the problem is, what if you're in test mode and you shut off MuleSoft, and then somebody kicks off a load test in Salesforce and drops, 300,000 platform events into the platform event bus, and the MuleSoft wakes up and now it gets a tsunami of 300,000 platform events? That happened at my utility I was working on. So you need to think about things like that. So this is what you need to think about as an architect. All right, be a good builder. So decide, are you a coder? Are you not a coder? Do you want to be a coder? Do you not want to be a coder? Do you want to be a visual coder? People do flows with error handling, try-catch. They're coders. They are building logic and loops. They are coders. They're just not writing code. I call them visual programmers. So we are no longer into configurators and coders. We're at configurators who just do metadata pure. When you do flows, I've seen some kick butt flows that are amazing. So I put flows in programming now. They are programmers, they're just visual programmers. So decide, are you a visual programmer, are you a code programmer, are you doing LWCs, visual flows, and be good at it. Get good. Get good at what you do. Learn what the other trades do that you don't want to become, but you don't have to be every trade as an architect. Architect doesn't have to be an electrician and a plumber and a concrete pour, but they can at least hover around the job site and talk to the concrete pourers and say, tell me, what you do, because it'll help me be a better architect. So learn what the other trades do, maybe as an ancillary point of view. I have this thing I call, when you want to carve a bear in a block of wood, if you try to carve the bear, you're going to get it wrong. What I do is I visualize the bear in the wood, and I'm just freeing the bear. I'm just taking the extra wood away. So I see a solution, and then it's like I go straight there. So start to see the solutions. I call it, see the bear. Become a good builder. Now we're going to start talking about the art of being an architect. There is some science. This is technology. So now we're going to go into the pieces and parts you need to learn. One, learn the clouds. What I did in one of my videos, which is some of the products party together and some do not, like which ones run in core and which do not. Sales, CPQ, service, they run in core. But Marketing Cloud, product formerly known as Pardot, Tableau, Data Cloud, they don't run in core. Data Cloud is kind of attached to core, but it's not on core. So you got to know where things are, what's in core, what's not, and it'll affect things. Huh? Now, so I started my videos just to give away, and I started grouping them by certain areas. And in my data architect, and I do little cute little animals for this. So data modeling, I believe, is like an art. And I believe there are universal truths out there in data models. So, one, learn the Sales Cloud data model, know it inside and out. Counts, contacts, opportunities. And then the trick one is so you have junction objects. So you have an opportunity in products, and you have this child object called an opportunity product. Does it point to the product? No. What does it point to? The PBE. So that's like a trick question. I can always tell if somebody really knows the object model. As I say, so I have opportunities and products, and I have an opportunity product. Does the opportunity product point to the product? And it doesn't.
Does it contain a lookup to the product? Yes.
But it's actually the PBE. It's the PBE that it links to, the price book entry. Oh, you mean that extra look? All right. Touche. See? I'm going to go check that out, make sure I have the extra line. You get these object models. I used to think they sucked. Because I like a top-down thing, but then I took one of my crazy certifications and business analysts, and they talked about why they don't have crooked lines. This is straight lines, because you start to have crooked lines, and you'd rather I used to go top-down, center-out data model, and I would have these connections that would wrap around because everything needs to account, and you have all these lines to the account. So their answer in this modeling, UML modeling, is to make account really long and have all the lines be straight and sometimes come from the bottom. And I can respect that. So I used to not like this data modeling, but if you notice, every line is straight. There are no curving lines, and it simplifies things. And you'll notice quote is really big, even though it only has 2 connection points. Strange. Account is massive because it gives me all the connections. And then I still like a top-down, what I call them simplified data models. And then there's a lot more of these connectors. Is it single? Is it preferred by? There's like 6 or 8 of them of the connectors. Does it mean a one-to-one, a one-to-one, forcing the one, a one-to-many? So there is good value. Decide if you like that or the simplified. Okay? So there's my simplified. This is how I usually start. And then when I get done, you can go to the more fully fleshed out version. Learn to read them both. For me, the simplified is top down, left to right, simple crow's feet. And if it's like a master detail, I will put a little MD and put it in red. Custom objects in blue. Standard objects in blue, custom objects, put the underscore C. So it's like an art form. And I teach the data arc class. And I love it. It's like building the data models they're like the bones of all the applications we're building is the data model. Here's actually the data model for Salesforce. Did you guys know that Salesforce is an abstracted data model? So your data model actually lives inside their data model. So there's actually an empty objects, an empty fields, an empty data, an empty clog. So this is Salesforce's data model where they're putting your data model. So you create an S object, it goes into the empty objects. You create a custom field, it's going into the empty fields. But of course they're going to have an org ID, and they're going to have the fallback, the relations, and the denormed. So this is actually from Salesforce Tech Support Docs. Salesforce's data model is where your data model exists. There is not an object in their database called banana. If you create a banana object, there's no banana table in there. There is an entry called banana, and there are all the fields of the banana in the field table. So there's an object, there's a record in the object table, a field in the field table, and in the data table, there is a link to your org, a link to your object, and a link to your field. That's how Salesforce stores its data. And then it actually flattens all your data for optimization for indexes. What is that special flattened version called? Anybody past data arc? You want this hidden table that has like up to 100 fields? Skinny table. So it actually will flatten your data into a flattened version with 100 columns, run indexes on it, and that's how you get, it's called skinny table. So this is the same data model, objects, fields, and indexes. So your data model lives in its data model. Learn, this is that same pattern repeating itself. This is my survey I talked about. So you've got survey responses, and then you might have questions, dynamic fields, responses. And this data model, instead of questions and survey version and survey questions, that could be tables, fields. I've done dynamic form builders, dynamic form generation, configurators. I wrote configurator back years ago for Toyota, and I had a very similar model. Configurator choices, and I had actually rule sets deciding if you chose like these rims, you'd have these color choices, or this color, you'd have this choice. And I did a client called 3-day blinds, window coverings. And it was, do you want an inside mount? You had a front cap. If you outside mounted the window coverings, you needed end caps. So that was what I called a question that was dependent on the answer of a previous question. Data model is almost identical. And this is in CPQ, product rules, product actions. It's just the same data model. So your data models grow. Security spectacular. Look and learn. Nothing is unknowable for you. Everything can be broken down into smaller parts and you can know everything. Nothing is unknowable. That's what I believe. So let's take a look at security. Security has authentication. Who are you? Authorization. What keys do you get? So I have an analogy. I love analogies. Anybody that knows me knows I live analogies. My kids are sick of my analogies, but I speak in analogies. So think of Salesforce as a building. Getting in the building is authentication. Can you get past the guard? Do I know who you are? And these are the constructs: app manager, connected app, auth provider, sites, profiles, getting in. This is authentication. These are the constructs that lead to that. Now, once you get into the building, I have different offices. Which office do I get to? Can I go into HR's office? Do I get to see HR? No HR for you. No accounting for you. You stay up in the sales office only. Sales objects only for you. That is controlled by apps, tabs, objects, fields, reports, and these constructs. Profiles, permission sets. Move everything to permission sets. No more profiles. Now, I let you in HR. Should you see every person's personal record? No, especially your boss or your subordinates. You don't get to see their records. So that's record level security, where you get roles, profiles, OWD, sharing rules, territories, assignments. So that's how I use analogies: building, offices, records, files, and everything is knowable. So I created the Steve's 20 ways of sharing a record in Salesforce. There are 20 with some slight derivatives, and I mapped them out. Org-wide defaults, grant user hierarchy, ownership 1, 2, and 3. We have criteria, guest and owner. There's limits, 50, 50, 200, 300 total. These are the rules. Watch my videos to get all these details. I actually set up one org, and I'll create 3 users and share a record, not share a record, share a record, not share a record. And I show each and every one of these. And you can understand it. 3, manual teams and territories. 4, permissions, programmatic and implicit. There are implicit shares. Salesforce adds implicit shares, and I demonstrate how to create it. It takes 3 users. 1 user owns the record. 1 user, you grant access and you can see something, and then the other user never gets that and they can't. So it takes 3 users, and I demonstrate this, and now it's knowable to me. So everything is knowable. Restriction rules, scoping rules. I love restriction rules, but you only get 2. It's like a shotgun with just 2 shotgun shells. 2 restriction rules per object, that's it. And scoping rules are kind of not worth the time. I don't know why they built them, but that's all right. That's just my personal opinion. And then you got custom code. Now we get to sharing sets, sharing groups, data sharing rules. And the last one, of course, external hierarchy and super user. So there's only 20 sharing rules. They're all knowable. And go watch my videos. They're all out there. I break them all down. Integrations across the APIs. So you're going to learn how do I tie. Salesforce is rarely by itself. I most likely link it together with other things. Learn about sales, service, integration points, arrows. Really dive into what integration is. I broke down every way into Salesforce. These are the only ways in. 1, I start with a browser. I hit login.salesforce, I authenticate. 2, I hit the UI. I also found that CTI, computer telephony integration, slides in as a JavaScript at that layer. And then you have your experience portals, your sites visual, and then web to lead and web to case has the web to. It's a /web2 in the URL. So I traced that. I was tracing those in. And then, of course, you have the email. On the left, you have your client hitting login. And then you have these things called web services version. There's only, 86 of them, and I found them. So I'm going to show you the 86 web services I found going in across the Salesforce products. Some are versioned, some are non-versioned. So let's take a peek. So if we come over here, study the help. And I found these 86. You've got the metadata, the CRM REST, the reports and dashboards REST, the REST API, the IoT REST, the Einstein REST, the Connect REST, the this REST, the that REST, the this metadata, the this platform events. So what I did is I traced every document about Salesforce down and hunted them all down and documented them out. So they're all out there, understandable. All right. So learn about integration diagrams, identity. I take complicated things like swim lanes and say I'm at a beer garden, I want to get some beer. So they send me the guard, I get a wrist bracelet. He sends me back, I show my wrist bracelet, I get my beer. That's username, password flow. Or web server flow. I want some beer at the burger house, but they can't go get the beer on my behalf, so I do a little auth, I get a little token, and then the burger house can now go get the beer on my behalf and serve me burger, their data with beer, Salesforce data, all combined, and I never have to re-authenticate. That's Workbench. Anybody go to Workbench? How does it know to keep logging in for you day after day? What does it have? What's it holding on to? What's that? Which token? The refresh token. And that's that token that allows me to keep getting beer for you. All understandable if you break it down. Governance, we're all familiar with Scrum and ALM and control, DevOps, environment, topologies. Dove into Data Cloud. I said, I want to learn Data Cloud. So I became certified. Now I'm actually a Data Cloud instructor, so I'm certified to teach Data Cloud. Really, these are the 4 parts of data. I'm going to give it to you, Data Cloud, in 30 seconds. You ingest your data from sales, B2B commerce, marketing cloud, or you can push it in through CSVs. Cool, that's part 1. 2, comes into what's called the data source, goes to a data lake. You formulas, data transform, and you end up on DMOs. So now my data's come in, it's been transformed and normalized. That's part 2. Part 3, I then try to find the same Steve Simpson in my data that's really the same Steve Simpson, and then I do some cool calculations called calculated insights. That's part 3, identify and calculate. And then part 4, I need to do something with this stuff. So what I do is I segment, I create all the users that have been, to my store in the last 3 weeks, 3 months, haven't been there, putting them in a segment, and then I take actions. So I have segments, activations, activation targets, and I can even read data change in Data Cloud and throw platform events. I have one of my videos throwing platform events by a data change. That's it. And then I show you how you can call in and get your data from core or APIs. That's Data Cloud. Now, how much data you can put in Data Cloud? I don't know, it starts out at 5 terabytes. So you get this, you say you're putting in 1 million rows, that's nothing. You can put in 1 billion rows into Data Cloud. That's Data Cloud. Really cool stuff, a lot of data, and it's part of those 4 parts. It's all understandable. I got a little crazy with my certs, and I have loved it. I have learned really cool things getting, admin certified, BA certified, designer certified. I've led teams and had them on my team, but for that certification, I had to become them. Nonprofit, I learned the coolest things from nonprofit. They use a temp object because an import object for data loading. So cool. Their account model. There is great knowledge hidden all throughout. So you're going to choose your role, grab your certs. AI, I love Copilot. ChatGPT, I live and breathe on. So let's assume you're crazy. I've got a few minutes left. You're crazy enough to say, I really want to go for the big mountain. So some of you here, I know, already have system and app. So you've made that choice. You want to go further. So you got to be able to fast think, fast solve, and have strong presentation skills. Key thing, don't give up. Remember, I didn't pass the first time. I never gave up. Think correct, then think fast. So be correct before you're fast. And there are things you know and things you don't know and things you think. Don't pretend that something you think is something you know. Be able to say, I don't know. That's okay. I'll figure it out. I will learn it. Do not BS. People are depending on your solutioning ability. Do not say something false, because if you do, they will no longer trust all the truths you gave them. So say, I am not sure. Let's find out. So that's what a good architect should do. Then in prep, go really quick, know everything, learn all this stuff again. Where is it used? How do I use it? What's its strengths? What's its weaknesses? How do I explain it to a developer, a business, a leader? And then you're going to get all the certs you need, get hands-on, get a mentor, practice, right? Practice. I have people who are on getting ready for this phase. Practice. And the exam itself is you solve. It's like in an RFP. You solve, you present it. It's like a 45-minute monologue where you present this crazy solution, and we're trying to listen to everything you're saying and give you whatever score. I won't say anything about it. And then you got to handle the Q&A, where we dive in and make sure you really know it. All right, then what do? Let's say you finally reach your journey. Wow, that was 6 years ago for me. What do I believe you do? I believe you give back. And that's what I'm trying to do. Just give back. Give back, engage, and contribute. You should stay curious and learn. And don't limit, learn new things. And then create something new. Don't just sit back. So create something new. Share what you've created. So I believe that anybody that does go for this grand goal should they help the next round. That's why I am here. Help the next group, help the people next to you, and then try to make the world better. So that is what I believe an architect should do. This is like the mental journey. And you can find me if you are interested. Again, I'm not selling anything. You would find me on my website. I have my videos. I'm adding blogs. And of course, today was actually video 100. I released it this morning. Every day I woke up, I had to have an idea. I had to figure it out for an hour to get to org, solve a problem, then kick in the camera, video it, do any editing, uploaded it to YouTube, and then post it and do it, and then do it all again every day, 5 days a week since before Dreamforce. So I am so looking forward to maybe doing a couple a week, 2 a week instead of 1 every day. Didn't miss a day. And I'm doing it for you, for all of you. That's why I did what I did. So I hope this was helpful. Go be architects today. You don't need to be a CTA to be an architect. only go there if you are crazy enough to think you want that. You can be an architect every day. You just try to do a better job. And you can call yourself an architect. Just try to live up to it. Does that make sense? Okay. I hope that was helpful. Any questions? Yes?
What programming languages do architects usually know? CTAs?
So what programming languages do architects know? It is not required. You will have to pass the test. The hardest one is going to be like integration. I teach the integration architect class, so I teach the whole pyramid for Salesforce. I would say there's like 10 lines of code I teach my students. 10 lines of code to make a call out, 10 lines of code to create, it's the HTTP object, create the request, set the verb, the get the response, check for the 200, and then just do your JSON parsing. It's like, I say, here are the 6 lines to do a call out. Here are the 8 lines. You don't need a ton of code. We need you to know what coding is, know that, but you need to know the clouds and when to use this. So it's not a lot of code. Other questions? So you don't have to be a CTA to be an architect. You are all architects because you're thinking ahead by being here in the first place. You're already saying, I want to be more than just doing the box. I'm building a little shed. I want to, I put some AC in it here in Arizona. If I want windows, how will it grow? What happens when the moment you think that, you're an architect. So I hope that helped. Thank you very much.